welcome to Bibliophile series, episode 37. In this series, we go through articles from across the newspapers and dailies around the world. And I read it, I tell you the meaning, and then we look at the difficulty level of the article we've gone through. This week, we are talking of an article in Deutsche Welle, a German newspaper, how extremist groups like Islamic State are using AI. Let's go through it. The video shows an older episode of Family Guy, one of the world's best-known cartoon comedy shows, in which the main character, Peter Griffin, drives a van containing a bomb at gunpoint over the bridge. But the audio has been changed. Our weapons are heavy, our ranks are many, but the soldiers of Allah are more than ready. Griffin sings in a tune meant to encourage followers of extremist Islamic State group, IS. Yeah. The animation is just one illustration of how extremist groups are using advanced computing or artificial intelligence to create content for their followers. The term AI covers a wide range of digital technologies and can mean anything from faster processing of large amounts of digital data for analysis to what's known as generative AI, which generates new text or visuals based on huge amounts of data. That's how the Peter Griffin song was created. The Peter Griffin song that is being referenced here is this song. Our weapons are heavy, our ranks are many, but the soldiers of Allah are more than ready. Okay. The rapid democratization of generative AI technology in recent years. When we call it rapid democratization, it means rapid availability of access. Is having a profound impact on how extremist organizations engage in influence operations online. Writes Daniel Siegel, a US researcher who analyzed how AI is used for malicious purposes in an article for Global Network on Extremism and Technology, in which he highlighted the Peter Griffin video. Okay. So in the first portion of this article, we have an example of a Family Guy video in which the audio has been changed, which is meant to encourage people to become followers of Islamic State. And the availability and access of AI-based tools is the new direction in which extremist groups are moving towards in order to gather more and more followers. Okay. Increase in extremists using AI. Over the past year, observers from a variety of monitoring organizations have reported how IS and other extremist groups are encouraging followers to make use of new digital tools. So not only are they using it themselves, they're also encouraging followers, those who have drunk the Kool-Aid, to use the new digital tools, the tools being AI and advanced computing. Okay. In February, a group affiliated with Al-Qaeda announced it would start holding AI workshops online. Al-Qaeda is holding AI workshops online. The Washington Post reported. Washington Post is an American newspaper. Later, the same group released a guide on using AI chatbots. Al-Qaeda also released a guide on using AI chatbots. Wonderful. In March, after a branch of Islamic State killed over 135 people in a terror attack on a Moscow theater, one of the group's followers created a fake news broadcast about the event, publishing it 4 days after the attack. When he's saying publishing it, they are referring to the fake website or fake news broadcast. And earlier this month, officers from Spain's Ministry of the Interior arrested 9 young people around the country who had been sharing propaganda celebrating the IS group, including one man described as being focused on extremist multimedia content using specialized editing applications supported by artificial intelligence. What we know about AI use today is that it works as a complement to official propaganda by both Al-Qaeda and IS. Both these extremist groups are using AI tools in order to further their narrative. Says Mustafa Ayad, Executive Director for Africa, the Middle East and Asia at the London-based Institute of Strategic Dialogue, which investigates extremism of all kinds. It allows supporters and unofficial support groups to create emotive content specifically used to galvanize the base of supporters around the core concept. So far, none of the ideas are out of this world. Perhaps a better example of this, I don't know how dated this information will be, will be around the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Within 3-4 hours of it, within 3-4 hours of it, you had contradictory reports. The person who ended up shooting was an Antifa member, was also some musician, was also some Italian, was also some black person, was also some conservative, was also different sorts of people, different sorts of background. And all of this news was coming from verified accounts on Twitter, which is to say, the scope for misinformation on social media platforms is immense. The problem is, even if you dismiss all information you receive from social media as wrong information, this is not to be trusted. The problem is, where do you go to obtain news that is trustworthy? Because more often than not, even the media houses that are supposed to be the fourth pillar of democracy act as tools for extension of the official propaganda, maintaining the status quo. So it becomes a huge challenge. Which articles do you believe in? That leads to creation of uh, what we call bubbles of self-fulfillment, wherein if you believe in a certain narrative, you will find articles supporting that narrative. If you don't believe in a certain narrative, you will find articles attacking that narrative. And given that you find something online, the tendency is, if we read it online, we will believe it, which is something that is being used by the extremist groups here. As soon as we can get it online, as soon as we can publish it, as soon as it can be spread across the board, it can it can take on a life of its own. A lie repeated 1,000 times becomes true. There are lots of lies pervading in the society. One of the lies being that breakfast is the most important meal in the day. It is not scientifically proven. It is actually a Kellogg's marketing campaign from early 1900s that wanted people to eat their cereal. Or another lie that is extremely popular is the fact that uh, we use 10% of our brain. The original statement made was that the brain is so complex and the interplay between the different parts of the brain is so humongous and so not well understood that we only understand 10% of our brain. But with retelling from one person to the other person to the other person, that story has turned into we only use 10% of our brain, which has no basis in science. It is a modern day folklore. Or another story that a lot of people now at least don't believe was the fact that the wall of China can be is the only man-made structure that can be observed from the space. Not at all, man. The wall of China cannot be seen from space, even if you're even if you go up to the highest levels of atmosphere. Don't even go into space. Even in atmosphere, wall of China becomes invisible. It is no longer available. It is no longer seen unless you use some tools. So then these are popular myths that have pervaded our society and have become accepted. Similarly, as soon as we can get any sort of propaganda online, as soon as we can spread it out to multiple people, people will start believing in it. And this is something Al Qaeda, IS, the other extremist groups are relying upon. Okay. The way this kind of content looks also means it may not be picked up by content moderators on popular social media platforms either. So they do a very good job of camouflaging themselves. The way they do it, the way it is presented, it is very difficult to discern what is actual truth and what is a propaganda based narrative. In fact, Ayad, the executive director for London based Institute of Strategic Dialogue, Ayad told DW that even the more ridiculous and unrealistic IS content is often enough of a novelty for followers to share it among themselves. See, while we're talking of the world, you can also come back and look at wonderful Indian examples. We all are also willing to believe stupid narratives as long as it fulfills a purpose. There has to be a correction happening somewhere, but otherwise, there was a chip in the 2000 rupee note, or if we bang our plates and cutlery, the coronavirus will go away. All these sorts of stupid tales have also been propagated in India. It's not like we are immune to such stupidity. Okay. Extremists are early adopters. None of this is surprising to long-time observers of the IS group. When the extremist group first came to prominence around 2014, it was already making propaganda videos with fairly high production values to intimidate enemies and recruit followers. So they've always been, let's say, technologically adept, and they've made high production products, high production videos and content to scare enemies and also encourage followers or bring them into the fold. All this speaks to something the ISD has continually noted. ISD's Institute of Strategic Development has continually noted. Acha. Hopefully, we know the distinction between continuously is without break. Continually means regularly. There may be breaks, but it keeps on happening at a regular interval. So, continually noted. Terrorist groups and their supporters continue to be early adopters of technology to serve their interests. But how dangerous is this sort of content really? After all, fake news broadcast about Moscow attack looks fake. And the Peter Griffin song, is it hurting anybody? Or is it? Monitoring groups have listed a variety of ways in which extremist groups could use AI. Besides propaganda, they could also use chatbots from large language models like ChatGPT to converse with potential new recruits, experts suggest. Once the chatbot has aroused interest, a human recruiter might take over. Basically, what this chatbot is doing is it is screening applicants, it is screening potential targets. Once the chatbot has given enough indication that this person is a veritable mark, mark is somebody who is likely to be influenced. In wrestling, that term mark comes in, or even when it comes to scam. Mark is somebody who is easily fooled or easily deceived. So once the chatbot has identified this person is a mark, a human recruiter might take over, they say. AI models like ChatGPT also have certain rules written into their systems that prevent them from helping users with things like, for example, getting away with murder. Okay. However, these rules have proven unreliable in the past, and would-be terrorists might be able to override them to obtain dangerous information. Dangerous information, stuff like, has there been any case in which a person has gotten away with murder by burning the body, or what sort of acid to use so that the body evaporates without leaving a trace behind, or how do you build a bomb, or what is the most strategic point using which you can influence other people. All those sorts of questions, if you ask ChatGPT point blank, with the wherein the intent is to cause harm to others, they will stop. But if you frame it in a way wherein the intent looks scholarly, the intent looks academic, then ChatGPT is more than willing to give you information. Jailbreaking ChatGPT is very, very common. There are also fears that extremists could use AI tools to undertake digital or cyber attacks, or to help them plan terror attacks in real life. You could also use ChatGPT or these AI tools in order to plan cyber attacks. Basically, your own programming skills may not be up to scratch, but ChatGPT can perhaps help you teach what cyber attack happened. Let's say you're in India and some remote cyber attack that happened in Utah in US you learned about, and then you saw, okay, let me read up more about it. ChatGPT gives you the sort of thinking and working that happened there, and then you execute that somewhere in India. It can definitely happen. Deepfakes versus real bombs, the two most problematic things that can come from generative AI. At least deepfakes is from generative AI. Real bombs is about simply information availability. Experts argue that while AI has worrying potential in the hands of extremists, real life is still more dangerous. In a 2019 paper in the journal Perspectives on Terrorism, researchers examined the connection between how much propaganda the IS group put out and their actual physical attacks. There was no strong and predictable correlation, they conclude. Essentially, they are trying to find correlation between their online propaganda and their real world activity. And they're saying there is no direct correlation between them. Okay. It's similar to the discussion where we were having about the cyber weapons and cyber bombs around 10 years ago. Says Lily Peinenberg Müller, see in South Africa and Germany. This is read as Y. So Peinenberg would be the correct pronunciation to the best of my understanding. Lily Peinenberg Mueller, a research associate and expert on cybersecurity at the Department of War Studies at King's London College. Today, even rumors and old videos can have a destabilizing impact and lead to a flurry of disinformation on social media, she told the DW. And states have conventional bombs that can be dropped if that is their intention. I don't know if, at this stage, the use of AI by foreign terrorists and the supporters is more dangerous than their very real and graphic propaganda involving the wanton murders of civilians and attacks on security forces. This is where I think the article is going into a very, as in, at least the thought process is going very wide. We are now trying to identify which of these is more dangerous and not thinking of how can the danger of propaganda that is being espoused by use of AI-based technology can be addressed. We're thinking of is the real damage that they're causing larger, or is the propaganda that they're spreading, is the damage there larger? This is a useless comparison because both of them are bad. It's as good as saying, I can see a criminal who is murdering, and I can see a criminal who is, let's say, stealing a car. Between the two of them, which murderer is bad? Both of them are bad. There is no comparison between, oh, this person has done bad thing and that person has done less bad thing. Both of them are doing bad things. In an ideal world, you would be addressing both those crimes, not just let's go after the murderer because or let's go after the murderer because the person stealing the car is at least not taking human life. That is not the right way. But okay. And states have conventional bombs that can be dropped if that is their intention. I don't know if at this stage the use of AI by foreign terrorist organizations and the supporters is more dangerous than their very real and graphic propaganda involving the wanton murders of civilians and attacks on security forces, the ISD's Ayad says. Right now, the bigger threat is from these groups actually conducting attacks, inspiring lone actors or successfully recruiting new members because of their responses to geopolitical landscape, mainly the Israeli war on Gaza in response to October 7. We call it the Israeli war, but it's actually an Israeli attack on Gaza in response to October 7. We continue. They are using the civilian deaths and Israel's actions as a rhetorical device for recruitment and to build out campaigns. The extremist Islamic states are using the Israeli attack as the reason why people should join the extremist Islamist groups. Okay. So this article is very informative and perhaps looking at AI from a perspective that I'm guessing not a lot of us would have thought of. Lots of information here. In terms of difficulty, the article was not very difficult. It was very simple to understand. There are a few words that were perhaps required a little bit of understanding, but mostly people in the 11th to 12th grade level should be able to understand the crux of the passage. And the reading score is 39.65. So while this is not easy, this is not something that without context a lot of people will be able to comprehend entirely, but it is also not something that will be very difficult to comprehend. And that will be all for this week's episode. Hopefully, or this episode. Hopefully you learned something. See you in the next episode. Have fun. Okay, bye.